Fine. So in the last session, we just gone through the process of invoice creation and how to process the payment by using just from the invoice workbench. By selecting the invoice, we process the payment. Where just so we seen that basic process, but just we taken the note as just we seen standard invoice creation. Okay, the relevant information also we discussed how we are able to access to multiple BUs from the single user, and how to set default business unit in the invoice workbench. Fine. Okay, so PO based invoice creation we'll see in the P2P cycle. The next topic is invoice creation via spreadsheet. Okay, we know in EBS we have web ADI, right? We have web ADI, application desktop integrator. So this functionality, when you talk about finance, it's limited to GL and FA. In GL we can create the journals, and in FA we can create the additions from this spreadsheet functionality, which we call as web ADI. The same web ADI in Fusion we are calling as ADFDI. Okay, ADFDI, application desktop framework in data integrated. Okay, application desktop framework data integrated. Okay, sorry, desktop I mentioned, development, application development framework data integrator. By using that ADF technology, they built this function. That is the reason they named it as a ADFDI. So application development framework DI, data integrator. So this is equal to web ADI in EBS. So here the web ADI functionality is available in payables and receivables applications also. Not only this, in many applications they introduce this web ADI function as ADFDI. Now we know in EBS, if you want to create the journals in GL or assets in FA, we don't need to install any additional plugin for this ADFDI. Directly you can find the navigation. You can just go through that navigation, then we'll be connecting to the spreadsheet. It will create the framework, relevant framework based on the layout which you are selecting. But here, if you want to work on ADFDI in Fusion environment, first you have to install that ADFDI file, and just you have to download and install in the client machine. So then only this functionality will support from any client system. Okay. So now basically if you want to install this ADFDI, so you normally they provide the link under tools. So here they provide the link called as download ADF desktop integrator. Okay, here is the link. From here you can download and you can install into our machine. Okay, so now we'll download and we'll install. We'll see the process after installing. So this file what we are downloading and installing in our machine, that will support for many spreadsheet related functions. We'll come to know where it would be useful. Primarily this is we can use to create the invoices through spreadsheet. Okay, we'll just look at this process. So just click on download. There's some issue with this link. So now what we can do is I have that same file here. I'll be sharing the same file with you guys. Like what I'll do is, see here the extension is exe file. So I'll place this file in the Google Drive. Basically Google doesn't support to share the exe files across. So what I'll do is when if I to send this file, since we cannot send through Google accounts, I'll just change the extension from exe to ERP3. Now Google won't consider this is exe file. It will allow us to share. Once you receive this file, or else I'll place this file in the Google Drive. I'll place this file with this .erp3 extension, and you can download into your machine. Okay, and after downloading into your machine, after taking this into your machine, you can change to exe only. Now this will be available to download. Okay, you can just you can install it. So you can from Google Drive you can download into your machine, and you can change the extension to exe from some other extension, whichever whatever I'm going to mention, then you can install it to your machine, then you can start working on it. Okay, so we'll do in that way. For now, we'll see how to install it. If you want to install this, right click and select option called as run as administrator. Okay, the same file I'll be sharing by changing the extension. Once you get into your machine through Google Drive, you just change the extension back to exe. Okay, I'll just change to erp3.erp3. Once you get into your machine from Google Drive, you change to just set back to exe, then you can install into your machine, then you will be able to connect to ADFDA function wherever it is applicable in the Fusion applications. So just go with the option called as run as administrator. Don't run directly. Don't, if you double click also it will get installed. In some scenarios it won't support. So what we should do is we have to install as an administrator. So right click and say run as administrator. Say yes. Just click on install. Just wait for a while, it will be finished. Yeah, done. Installation complete, and say okay. After installing it, what we have to do is we have to go to the same spreadsheet. We have to make sure that few checkboxes are enabled, which will support this ADFDI functionality in spreadsheet. Go to Excel options. Go to Trust Center. Okay, within the Excel options, go to Trust Center. In Trust Center, go to Trust Center settings. And here you can go to macro settings and make sure that you enable these two checkboxes. Okay, enable all macros. Trust access to the VBA project object model. Just enable this to just make sure that this radio option, this checkbox is enabled. Okay, if that is enabled, we'll be able to create the invoices through spreadsheet by using ADFDI function. Already ADFDI we installed in this machine. We'll be able to connect from our application. Okay, so these are the points we have to notice. Now we'll see how to create the invoice from spreadsheet. Fine. So this we can close it, not required. Fine. Now we'll go and create invoice through spreadsheet, which we call as ADFDI. Go to navigator. Under payables, select invoices task, which will navigate us to invoice workbench. Click on task list. Here we have a task called as create invoice from spreadsheet. Okay, create invoice from spreadsheet. So create quick invoice. Just say okay. Okay, so do you want to connect to this URL? Say yes, the server URL, and provide login credentials so that the connectivity would be established from application to this spreadsheet to pull the data. So our username is Google. Provide password. Say skip if you see version related any message. Don't say install. Click on skip. Okay, as you see here, like create quick invoice, it's a very just the basic information you can create it. Okay, just created framework. So create quick invoices. So it's very basic information you can create invoice here. We'll see how to create it. So this spreadsheet is connected with our application. So now you can select our BU. Click on LOV and drop down values and select our business unit. Our BU name is Google US Business Unit. The import set and all not mandatory. Provide invoice number. So this is invoice number and invoice currency. You can select from this LOV option, drop down values, or directly you can enter. Say USD. Invoice amount, say $30,000. Invoice date, today's date. So 10th April 18. Supplier, just double click. So here we can provide the name, what name we have, Google supplier one, right? Search and select. So we given the site name as, what name we given. So what we can do is, if we don't remember the name, you can select the value as is not blank. This also you can set as a is not blank. So is not blank means which is not blank, like there should be some value. If you search you can find it. Google site one we given. Selected. So invoice type is standard, line type item, amount you can enter the same amount 30,000, right? Header level information you enter 30,000. If you want to match with the PO while you bring this information to application, you can just use the PO number or line number, PO line number, and you can select the distribution set here. So we create a distribution set with the name called as Google Expense. And just go through other fields. That's all. These are the basic information which we can provide within this spreadsheet. So now to import this information into application, go to create invoices and say save and import invoice, save and submit invoice import. Just click on this. This information can be imported into application through payables open invoice interface. Say OK. Row inserted successfully. You can specify these parameters or directly you can say submit. Select our BU name and say submit. If you drag little right, you can see the status message. So done. Invoice we created with the basic information in the spreadsheet that we imported into payables. To find out that invoice, you can go to manage invoices, select our business unit. Invoice date is today's date. Search. So yes, why it's not fetching? We'll search with the supplier name. Click on search. So this is the invoice we created in spreadsheet. Right, the amount is 30,000. If you scroll little right here, okay, you could see not from here. 1 second. You can see the source also from where it is created. Here also it is showing. Just click on this. This is the invoice which you imported. If you scroll little right, you can see from where the invoice is created. Source for the invoice source is spreadsheet. Nothing but ADFDA. Now just you can open this invoice and we can submit for validation, accounting, and just making the payment. Subsequent the sequence of activities you can perform. So invoice is validated. We may account undo send to GL. Fine, it's taking time. Oh, we just selected payment. Okay, fine, no issues. Okay, we have seen how to go with the painful option. So that's all about invoice creation through spreadsheet. Any questions from anyone related to this, please? This ADFDA is applicable for receivables also. When we work on receivables, we'll see. As a part of payables, this we can use for invoice creation. Okay, with the basic information. Fine. So now we'll see the debit memo.
Yes, sir. Where did you download it?
So basically, see that spreadsheet you can download from here. Okay, you can download from here under tools. Okay, under tools you can download. Since these are demo instances, there is no guarantee the link works all the time. That is the reason just I have another file which is downloaded earlier that I am using for our classes. The same I'll be sharing with you. So when you are practicing on an instance, if you find the case where you are able to download from the instance, download it or else use that file temporary purpose. When you work on some other instances for your client and all, that for sure that would be working. Or else you can use this file also. There won't be an issue. Okay, fine. Hope this is clear.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions, please? Okay, I'll be sharing this file. Okay, the file I'll be placing in the Google Drive, so you can take into your mission. So when I place in the Google Drive, I'll be changing this extension from exe to something else. I may write erp3. So once you take into your mission, set back to exe extension, then you will be able to install. When you install, you go with the run as administrator option. Right click and select it, and that's how you can install into your mission. So that's all about ADFDI. Okay. Now we'll see the
Is there any limitation on the number of
no
invoices
no
or
no
anything?
no limitation. You can just load large volume of invoices, but this can be
Okay.
used only for the day-to-day invoice entry process. When you talk about data conversions, we have a separate templates. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, this to enter very regular invoices. You can give the access to the user, the whatever 1 or 10 invoices user wants to enter into application, that they can process through spreadsheet. That's all. Okay. But this you can use for large volume of invoices also. But basically, as a part of data conversion, we have a separate templates. We'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, fine. So debit.
Lakshman, you said we are using this one for transaction creation, right?
Correct,
The
correct.
same spreadsheet.
Yeah, yeah. Instead
So
of
in that invoice number
using
will
the
be
invoice
sequence, right?
workbench, you can use it. Yeah, please.
In that invoice number will be in a sequence, right? So how do we managing that invoice number?
No, nobody enter invoice numbers in sequence. So the invoice which we get from supplier, that has to be entered in that invoice number field, right? So nobody
For the
will
transaction,
sequence and
we're
receive
not giving any
set
invoice
sequence.
number.
Sorry?
While creating the transaction,
Hmm.
we're not giving any invoice number right now. In AP, we have given manually.
No. One
Invoice.
second. When you get invoice from supplier, you will have invoice number, right?
Hmm.
Do you enter that number or your own number?
I'm not entering my number. The system will generate the number
No, that is a
for
wrong
the
practice.
transaction.
You have to enter whatever the number you see in the invoice which you get from supplier. Okay. If you enter that number,
No, for AP,
if you have any communication required with the supplier, any issues with that, you will be able to communicate. Always we enter the supplier invoice number which we get from supplier. That's it. It could be matching or standalone invoice creation. We have to enter that number. Apart from that, if you want to have a separate sequential numbering, yes, that you can set up. You can define the sequence and you can map with the category called as invoice, and that's how you can do it. But you should enter invoice number which you see in the supplier invoice. That's all. Okay.
for that is the AP side.
Sorry.
For AR, that
Yeah,
is AP side, we
we'll
are
talk about.
entering the supply
We'll
number.
discuss as a part of AR. Okay. In AR, we will be acting
Not,
as a supplier, right? When you say AR,
yes.
acting, you can generate any number. You can give it to your customer. They will follow that number. That's a different,
Okay.
right? Fine. We'll see in the other
Okay.
part of AR. We'll be doing setups and we'll see the process. At that time, we can discuss more on that.
Okay.
Fine. Yeah. So we'll see debit memo creation. So we know like when you do the purchase returns in purchasing application or say as a part of inventory, automatically system will trigger the debit memo creation in the payables. So that is automation. Apart from that, if you want to create the manual debit memo in the payables, how to do it? So to test this functionality, what we'll do is first we'll create one standard invoice. So create standard invoice with $10,000. And we'll create one debit memo. We'll write on debit memo. So debit memo with the $2,000. We'll create the debit memo and we'll apply that debit memo with the standard invoice. And when you make the payment, okay, system will reduce and we have to select this standard invoice debit memo. Then system will reduce 2,000 from the standard invoice. Will be processing 8,000 as a payment. If you are going to do this activity from payment workbench, we have to select. When you go with the PPR, payment process request, anyway system will be picking all eligible transactions based on the criteria. Now we'll see the manual process, how to create the debit memo, how to apply on the standard invoice. Fine. First we'll create the standard invoice with the $10,000. So from here also you can create, just click on create, or else you can go to task list. From there you can select task called as create. Supplier name is Google supplier 1, and invoice number is debit memo 1 DM1. And here select type, invoice type as a debit memo. Now enter amount sorry, first we just discussed to create standard invoice, right? Fine. So this is the number 10,000. You can go to line level also, you can enter the same. Anyway, system is defaulting the distribution set from supplier side to invoice lines that we can accept, or you can validate the invoice. Accounting is not mandated to make the payment, but if you want to perform, you can do it. Say post to ledger. Fine, done. We created standard invoice with $10,000. Now we'll create debit memo with the 2,000. When you say debit memo or credit memo in the payables, negative sign. Okay, you can use to reduce depending on the scenario. Right. So here say save and create next. Click on save and create next. Supplier is invoice number is debit memo 1 and amount. Before that you can change the, you can enter and you can change, there won't be an issue. But let's enter invoice type first, debit memo minus 2,000. Fine. Now we are creating this debit memo against invoice, right? So if that is the case, what we can do is here we have a drop down option. So we are going to correct the invoice amount, right? So here we have these two options: correct match invoices or correct unmatched invoice. With this debit memo, we want to reduce the invoice amount from which invoice? So the standalone invoice or the invoice which is created through matching, standalone only. That means unmatched invoice. So after giving the header information, okay, next two lines we have a drop down option. So from there you have to select the value called as correct unmatched invoice. If you want to reduce this 2,000 from the invoice which is created with the PO matching or receipt matching, it could be 2-way, 3-way, 4-way. So in that case we have to go with this option. But now the invoice what we have with the 10,000, that is standalone invoice. We didn't create that invoice by matching. So select this option, correct unmatched invoices, and click on go. So this is how we have to perform this. In case of EBS, what we do, invoice header level, select option as a match action as invoice, then we'll click on tab called as correct, right? So that's how we navigate and we perform. But here, this is how we have to select the value, and the system will allow us to reduce that amount. So the invoice number is something like this. So we given like 2222. Enable correct. So how much you want to reduce? 2,000. So minus 2,000. And say apply and say OK. So system created line based on this action. Now you can validate this invoice. Okay, anyway, accounting, if you want to submit for accounting, you can submit. It's accounted. Okay, now we'll go and make the payment for these two invoices. Switch to payments. Click on task list, say create payment. Okay, just click on create payment. Select information like whom we want to pay by using which bank account. So we want to process the payment to Google supplier. And select disbursement bank account, by using which account we want to process the payment, Google corporate account. And our payment processor profile, just we given name as a Google payment processor profile. Select document, Google check. Okay, just click on add. So here all the invoices which are unpaid available, which are belongs to the supplier. Now as we discussed, we can select these two invoices. Select this, and if you want to select one more invoice at a time, select and hold control and select another. So now we require these two, right? Select first one and hold control key and select DebitMemo. Say apply, say OK. System is reducing 2000. Now you can say save and close. So system will record the payment only for 8000. The same process is applicable for CreditMemo also. So we just process payment for 8000 only. Now if you talk about DebitMemo, the process remains same.
Lakshman, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
When we are making the payment for the AP side, do we need to enter the supplier bank account information or just the disbursement bank account information?
That depends which payment method you are using. Okay, if you are processing the electronic payments, the invoice level itself, that has to be set as it, that has to be specified. Normally what we do, so in the supplier level only we'll specify that account. Whenever you create invoice, that would get defaulted. If you want to see that supplier bank account number, you can go to in the invoice actions, manage installment. There we have option to select the supplier bank account. So that's how we'll be giving. But again, anyway, here we have to provide that disbursement bank account also. That is just to generate the instruction to the bank saying that this invoice related payment need to be disbursed to this supplier bank account as instruction. The pay account we have to specify, but from which account we want to send the payments, disperse the funds, that also mandatory we have to select. Okay. So that is a point to understand there. Okay. So now to test the credit memo, we'll create on standard invoice with the 5000 and we'll create the credit memo maybe with the 2000 or 1000. We'll create with the 1000 and finally we'll be processing 4000 payment. Fine. So we'll go to invoices. The process remains same, just we'll be selecting the invoice type as credit memo when you create credit memo. Standard invoice. So create invoice. Supplier is Google. So Google supplier 1. Invoice number, say this is our invoice number. Invoice amount is $5,000. Yes, standard invoice we are creating. You can enter same amount as a line amount. You can validate. You can account. Now you can say save and create next. So now we'll create the credit memo. Supplier is Google.
Lakshman, is it possible to copy an invoice?
Sorry, for invoice and we don't have any just copy option. Transaction we have copy. Okay, invoice no. Transaction we have. Fine. So credit memo. Select credit memo. So here we discussed to create credit memo with $1,000. So enter -1,000. Same process. So here select option as a correct unmatched invoices. Click on go. So invoice number we given with this number. Select from 5,000 how much you want to reduce. 1,000 only. -1,000. Say apply. Any question? Seems to somebody unmuted. Oops, hear some noise. Okay, now it's fine, I guess. Fine, done. Now we can validate this invoice. You can account it or else you can do it later. Done. If you want to process the payment, same process. Okay, you can go to payment workbench by clicking on payments, or else if you have all these invoices, if you go and run the PPR, system will be picking all the eligible invoices, then their automatic will reduce. Since it's a manual process we are testing, we have to select the invoices which need to be processed by considering as a credit memo is available. Google. Select standard invoice under credit memo. Select, hold control tab, and select credit memo one, say apply and OK. Fine. So any questions from anyone related to this debit memo or credit memo process? It's same as EBS, what you see in EBS the same, but the option selection is different here. So there in the header level you can see invoice action. There you should select it as a match action as invoice, but here such kind of control we don't have. Straight away you can go and specify matched or unmatched invoices you want to correct, then you can give the information and you can do it. That's it. Okay, that's all about debit memo and credit memo, which you can create through manual process. Done. The next one is payment creation process. Just now we have seen we created payment also from payment workbench. So we'll see the payment process request, PPR. So to test this functionality, we'll create a few invoices. I think already we have only one unpaid invoice, outstanding invoice. Okay, to test this functionality, we'll create few invoices. We'll create two more invoices. Okay, so that we can see how it will select. Create two more invoices. I think already we have one outstanding invoice. We'll go and create two more. And after creating that, you can directly create, or you can submit the, say we can submit, sorry, payment process request, PPR, right? So directly you can go on to specify the criteria and the PPR, payment process request, and you can submit or else if you want to simplify this submission, so what are the criteria required that you may set in the template. Okay, so here what we'll do is, yes, we'll see how to submit, but before that, how to create the template and how we can use the template, how we can reuse the template to submit the payment process request, that also we'll see. Okay, we'll see how to create payment template to use in the PPR. We'll submit, that's how you can process the payment. So we'll see that. So just we'll go and create two more invoices so that system will pick these two plus other outstanding invoices which are available for the same PU. If I just go to invoice workbench, say create invoice. So invoice number here you can give us, so 5555. You can enter any amount, enter same in the line level, or we may enter multiple lines, that depends. Validate and account it, or else accounting is anyway not mandated to process the payment. Ignore accounting, not an issue. Just say create, save and create next. There is same Google supplier 1. Invoice number is 6666. So 25,000. Just place cursor, it will open the field. Enter amount. Validate it. Validate it. So validated, done. Just save and close. Now go to payments. So from here directly you can submit payment process request. Submit payment process request. Here you can specify the criteria, which pay group, which currency, which BU, LEs, and which source related invoices need to be processed for payment in this batch. And here you can specify the some processing options and default information by using which bank account. Okay, and other controls and default information you can specify. So instead of selecting all the disbursement bank account and other criteria which very often we use, we can create the template at that when we submit the payment process request. You can select the template here. The template information would get defaulted under this selection criteria as well as payment and processing options, however you set in the template. What we'll do is we'll go and create the template. The template we'll use here, that will default the information here. If you want to override, you can override, and that's how we can submit the payment process request. First we'll see how to create the template. The same process we do in EBS also, right? So we'll see that. So here you could see manage payment process request. There should be template. Minimize it so that you can get a view of the task list. Still it is not appearing. Third one, see manage payment process request template. Fine. The third task, manage payment process template. So we know template is not mandatory. If you want to predefine some criteria, if you want to reuse it, you can just define template, or else straight away we can go and specify the criteria and you can set the processing options. You can process the payments automatically. Just click on manage payment process template and say create. Fine. Payment process request template name. So Google payment process request template. And you can provide the selection criteria by following which criteria system has to pick the invoices. Okay, you can set how you require. Else you may specify specific payment method, particular supplier type, or if you want to pick the invoice related to only one supplier, you can specify the supplier name also here. Under payment processing options, you can specify by using which bank account and which document, which by using which payment process profile payment should be processed. So here we can select our corporate account. Payment document is Google check. Select payment process profile. Okay, and say we can set this option, the processing options, review proposed payments. One system will create proposed payments, say we want to review them, and say create payment file immediately. Okay, yes, you can set however just remaining options also you can specify how you require. So this is how you can just create the template and you can set some default information. But as selection criteria, we are going with a very open criteria. We are not setting some control. Anyway, here we have only invoices for one supplier and only with one payment method. And these and all like currency also only one. Everything is one definition we have. So if you want to change something, you can change accordingly. It will pick the invoices when you use this template in the process. Okay, just as a part of the template, we selected only payment related disbursement bank account document as well as PPR. I mean payment process profile. And we specified these options. Then say save and close. Done. Okay, this template we can use at the time of payment process request submission. Or you can select all the parameters again through manual process if you don't want to use this template. So to submit the payment process request, click on submit payment process request. Here you can provide the request name. Okay. So Google, the request name I'm giving with the date. So we can select the template so that the information will get defaulted. So defaulted on these checkbox also, and all this system is taken from template. In the criteria, we didn't specify anything in the template level also. But here, if you want to set the criteria, system has to pick the invoices only for specific supplier. You may select here. Okay. So any level you can set, you can override before you submit. So done. Now you can say submit. Now system will pick all the invoices, eligible invoices. Here there is no criteria, right? So all it will pick which are unpaid, irrespective of when those are arrived due date or future due date, doesn't matter. Done. Because we didn't specify the due date related parameter also. Right? Now you can go to task called as manage payment process request. Second task. Here you can search for our request which we submitted. We submitted Google with the today's date. So Google until April 10th, 2018. So installment selection, installments selected 2. Now just we have to get action here. For that you can click on refresh. Yes. So we specified that checkbox. Okay, review proposed payments, right? So that is the reason it is pending for review. Pending proposed payments review. Okay, two invoices got selected. Action. Click on actions. You can see that. So the two invoices which we created just now, 25,000, 25,000. I think other invoice we have. I think we paid. I guess that is not coming. So this is how you can see, and you can say. And if you want to just do any modifications, you can do it. For example, if you want to remove this invoice, system selected. Since you open criteria, if you want to remove, you can remove. If you want to reduce the invoice amount, you can reduce by just you can select it, and it will open the option, and you will be able to just reduce the amount, and however you want to do the action, you can do it on this. Now you can click on resume payment process. It will take to the next step where it will build these payments. You can click on refresh. Okay, the same request you can see from the here from ESS job page. If you go to ESS job page, system will be running the relevant jobs. Now next step is system is building that selected invoices to format in the next stage. So done. So formatted and ready for printing. Just click on go to task actions window. And already we discussed one point like in cloud we cannot install printers our own. That has to be done by Oracle only. In this demo environment, Visual instances, no printer is installed. That is the reason you don't see the dummy value called as no printer. Okay, so no printer information, no issues. It will allow us to proceed. You can just click on print as action, say OK and refresh. Okay, submitted for printing. Now we can confirm this PPR, payment process request. Just click on record print status and say submit. It's asking for confirmation from our side as a warning. Do you want to confirm the payment unless you are sure all the payments in this file are complete and were processed by your payment system or financial institution? Yes, that's true. Just say record. Now its system will confirm these invoices you can see as a payment records. So we're done with that. If you want to see the payments which are processed against this supplier, you can click on view payments. So for these two invoices, payment is processed. The payment document number is 4, check number is 4. The same you can go and find from payment workbench. So done. Go to manage payments. Instead of LOV, just you can enter name and tab out, it will fetch the value. Then search. Now you can find all the invoices which are processed for this supplier as a payments. So this here 50,000 we have which are processed with the document number 4. If you click on the document number, within that you can find two invoices as payment is processed. Paid invoices are these two which we process through PPR, payment process request. Okay, here within this you can see the name also. Type is payment process request. Through payment process request, payments are processed. So all other invoices we processed from payment workbench. Here type is quick, which allows printing also, right? Okay, if you compare with EBS, you don't see any difference related to this function. With template or without template, you can process the payment. That's all about payment process request, where system will pick and it will process. Now we'll see the prepayment invoice process. When I talk about prepayment, it's all about creating the prepayment invoice and processing the payment and applying the prepayment invoice on other outstanding invoices. As we know, like as per our payable system, without invoice we cannot make the payment. That is the reason to give the advance to the supplier, it's a mandatory you have to create the invoice. Otherwise, reality invoice is not required for prepayment. So if there is any provision in the application which allows us to make the payment directly, the condition is invoice is mandatory to create the payment. There are some other accounting systems which allows, but in our payables not possible, right? Say prepayment invoice. To test this functionality, what we do is we have to create prepayment invoice. So we'll create the prepayment invoice with $1 lakh, and we have to process the payment for prepayment invoice. Process payment for prepayment invoice. Okay, create prepayment invoice. Sorry. Create prepayment invoice and process payment for prepayment invoice, so that this 1 lakh would be available with our supplier. So whenever we just have any transaction with the supplier as a purchase, so we can use that prepayment against that invoice. We can just adjust that prepayment amount on the future transactions. So again, when you create the prepayment invoice, we can see like whether the prepayment is temporary prepayment or permanent prepayment. Fine. So to test this functionality, we'll create first prepayment invoice, then we'll process the payment. So once we process that, 1 lakh would be available with the supplier. Now for our testing, say we'll just say we purchased something from supplier for 25,000. In that case, we have to create the standard invoice, right? Say create standard invoice against the same supplier for $25,000. That amount we can the prepayment, instead of making the payment again for this invoice separately, we may use prepayment. If you want to use the prepayment, so how to apply it, we'll see. Say apply prepayment on standard invoice. How much will apply? 25,000 will apply. Remaining 75,000 would be available with the supplier. So when we create the invoice against the supplier, if you want, see in case of EBS, what happens at the time of invoice creation, if any prepayment is available with the supplier, system will give a pop-up message, right, saying that there is one or multiple prepayments are available with the same supplier. If you want to apply those, you can go to actions and you can use the apply and apply checkbox and say okay, this is of just some navigation message also system displays, but here it won't display. It won't give any pop-up, but it will give you some notification icon. If you want system to give information as there is some prepayment against the supplier, for that they're given control. You have to set the control saying that system has to give the notification. If you enable the checkbox as system should give the notification if any prepayments are available with the same supplier, it will give some notification. Otherwise, even prepayment is available, system won't give any notification. You want to get notification or you don't want to get notification from system based on the prepayment availability, that you can decide. We'll see that. Okay, we'll see that point. So first we'll go and create the prepayment invoice and we'll process the payment. Before we go and create the standard invoice, we'll look at that option where we can enable that, so that system will give the prompt. It's not a prompt, just notification icon it will show. Fine. Go to invoice workbench to create the prepayment invoice. Create invoice. So invoice number, we can say 7777. So invoice amount is $1 lakh. Type is prepayment. Okay, type is prepayment. Now you can go to show more. Here you could see whether this prepayment is temporary or permanent. So in case of EBS and the invoice header level, you can see one field called as prepayment type. There we can find two values as permanent and temporary. By default, system select temporary prepayment, which can be applied on open invoices in future. But here they given that control with the checkbox. So allow prepayment application. If the checkbox is enabled, this prepayment will act as a temporary. That means that can be applied. If we disable the checkbox, this prepayment will become permanent prepayment, which you cannot apply. Apply after. There in EBS we have a field name as a pay through date. Okay. Apply after pay through date. That means if you give the so and so date 10th April, after 10th April only you can apply. Okay, that's how we have this. Just notice this point here, there is no selection as a temporary and permanent. Based on this checkbox, the functionality is enabled. Okay, if it is enabled, it will you have to treat as this is a temporary prepayment. If it is disabled, it's a permanent prepayment. Fine. So just click on show less. Now we can proceed with the line information. Line level you can enter 1 lakh. Okay. So in case of EBS, system defaults prepayment account from supplier side, financial options to supplier site as a mandatory, right? The prepayment account is mandatory at supplier site in EBS. That is the reason whenever you create the new supplier site, system defaults prepayment account from financial options to supplier site. But in Fusion, that is not mandatory, and it won't default from financial options to uh, the invoice supplier site. That is the reason, since no account over there, the system is not deriving the prepayment account. Okay, now here you can select the prepayment account. So click on search. Okay, prepayments, say okay. So we validated status is unpaid. Yes, we'll go and make the payment for this prepayment invoice. Say pay in full. Okay, Google payment process profile and select payment document. Say submit. Now you can see the status as available. So 1 lakh prepayment is available with the supplier. So we created and we processed payment. Now when you create the standard invoice against the same supplier with which supplier prepayment is available, in case of EBS, system will give one pop-up message. But here similar note if you want to get. So by default, system won't give note. If you go and if you start creating the standard invoice with the 25,000, you don't get any message from system as there is one prepayment with 1 lakh. If you want to see that kind of message from system, what we have to do is in the invoice options we have to enable one checkbox. So we're done with this. At the time of invoice creation, if you want to see the information from system as prepayment is available with the same supplier, in the invoice options we have to specify that. Go to invoice options, we have to go to our project, say manage implementation projects, say overview, search for invoice options. Click on go to task icon. You should go to prepayment section. So prepayment. So here by default payment term, when you create the prepayment, which payment term system has to default for prepayment invoice, that is there as immediate. We have access to only two payment terms, so you can select which need to be defaulted. Normally prepayment means whenever you want to do the payment we create, so we have to use immediate only. Settlement days, here you can set the settlement days. For say 5 days, after 5 days only that prepayment can be applied on any other invoice. And here you have an option like show available prepayments during invoice entry. Okay, show available prepayments during invoice entry. If you enable the checkbox, then system will give the note as there is some prepayment available with the same supplier. Okay, enable the checkbox, then say save and close, so that if you create the standard invoice, if prepayment is available with the same supplier, it will just give the notification. We'll see how you can see that. Now we'll go and create the standard invoice. So I'll just sign out and sign in, but not required all the time. Just we enable the checkbox, it may reflect, may not reflect immediately in terms of update process. So that is the reason just doing this activity. Go to invoices. So create invoice. So first you can select type as a, so normal standard invoice we are creating, right? Okay, fine. So select supplier. The moment you select supplier, then system will identify with the supplier any prepayment is available, then it will show the notification. So our supplier is Google. Now see, against the supplier number, it will update. Just wait for some time, it will update. So number, invoice number is say 8888. So as we discussed here, we can create standard invoice with the 25,000. 25,000. Save it. So this invoice has the same supplier. I mean, this one, nothing, just continue. Okay, just we saved it. Saved this invoice. Once you save it, now see system is showing some notification next to supplier number. So available prepayments 1. Amount available is $1 lakh. So this is how we'll get a notification here. It won't give any pop-up. It will show that bell icon, which is a notification icon. If you place the cursor on that, you can see that information. If there are multiple prepayments, it will list out in the pop-up itself. And so place the cursor on the notification. So if you enable checkbox, then it will show. Otherwise, here you don't see any bell icon. So even if you are trying to make the payment for this invoice without using the prepayment, it will allow. Okay. So you can enable the checkbox so that you will be able to see here. Fine. So now you can go with the standard process, validate this invoice. So validated. Now you can apply the prepayment on standard invoice. Apply prepayment on standard invoice. So to apply, we have to go to invoice actions. Say apply or unapply prepayment. So we are going to apply. Say apply prepayments. Only one is available with $1 lakh. Now the current invoice is 25,000. Yes, you want to apply 25. So if you want to perform that, select that record, click on apply. Say done. Since we applied, again we have to submit for validation. It's validated. So that's how just we can, now you can see its status is paid by using the prepayment. So that's how we can create the prepayment invoice and we can process for payment. We can create some standard invoice and we can apply the prepayment. If you want to see the notification, we can enable the checkbox in the invoice options. So that's all about prepayment invoice. So now we'll look at withholding tax. I think 920. Time may not be enough to go with the withholding tax. So we'll test bills payable.
Lakshman, with the prepayment invoice, there was this allow option, right? So if we checked it, it is available for application. But if we do not check it, it is not available for application. In which scenario that will apply?
Permanent, say you are giving some security deposit, which supplier won't allow you to get adjusted on your future purchases. In that case, we'll just use it. You'll be disabling, so that system won't allow to apply. Okay.
Okay, thanks.
It will show as well. Later in future, if you say, okay, now supply is not allowing, you are going to just stop that business and all. And for future, again, like before you close the transaction with that, if you are doing some few transactions, supplier said, okay, what are the security deposit you have with us that you can use. In that case, you can make it enable. Again, that will be converted as a temporary and you can use it, or else that you may request supplier to send as a refund. That's how we can handle.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. So bills payables, we know this is all about processing the future dated payments, which we call as PDC. When you issue the PDC checks, how that can be captured. When in case of PDC, we have to mention the maturity date for the check which we issue, right? It won't be just created with the same date where supplier can go and cash it. Just we have to manage with the additional, element called as maturity date information on the check. So to implement this, what we have to do, we have to provide bills payables account in common options. I have to make sure that. So we are using just we know when you process a payment by selecting the future dated date, it will be the system look for this bills payable account. So we have to provide bills payable account in the common options, and what are the payment method we use that has to be enabled for bills payables. So the current one which we are using a check, instead of enabling bills payable option for that check, we can create separate payment method for bills payables. Say create payment method for bills payables. Okay, after that we'll create one standard invoice. So I'll create with the $10,000, any amount you can use. Then we'll make the payment. Okay, make payment for the same invoice, and at the time of payment we include maturity date within that payment. Okay, on or after the date only that supplier can encash the check whatever we are going to issue. We'll see that. First we have to specify bills payable account in common options. Go to common options. Sorry, go to our project. search for common options. Okay, here we have a account called as bills payables. When you implement that solution as a mandatory, we have to select it. Okay, provide bills payable account here. Click on search. Somehow it's not responding. We'll cancel and we'll open again. Yeah, that's fine. Just search for task called as common options within our project. So task name is manage common options for payables and procurement. Just click on search. Search for bills payable account, or else we can go with advanced option. So contains, we look for payable account, which has prefix as bills. It seems that account is not there. No issues. We'll use this account by treating as a bills. Okay. Just let's treat as that account is bills payable account. So you can select and say save and close. Now we have to enable bills payable option for payment method. Search for payment methods. So manage payment methods. Click on go to task icon. Instead of enabling bills option for the check payment method which you are using, we can create the separate payment method for bills purpose. Let's say Google check bills. Okay, so this criteria and all you can set that. We can go with open criteria. Go to the tab called as bills payable. Enable checkbox called as use payment method to issue the bills payable, so that this payment method can be used for bills payables purpose. So whenever you select this payment method, system will open one additional field called as maturity date. Without providing the maturity date, you cannot process the payment for that invoice. That's how it will become, the control will be added the payment process. Now we'll create the standard invoice with the 10,000. When you just search invoice level, also we'll see that how to select that payment method. We'll just discuss as a part of definition. So create standard invoice with the $10,000. Supplier is Google supplier. Invoice number, so $10,000. Interline amount is 10,000. Fine, done. Now supplier level, we specified one payment method as a check as a default, right? That payment method system defaults for any invoice. So now our requirement is for this invoice, we want to issue the payment by using bills payables. We want to issue the PDC, post dated check. So in that case, what we have to do is go to manage installments to override the payment method. Okay, just save it. Go to invoice actions, say manage installments. So here payment method is check, which is defaulting from supplier site level. Site level we set check as default. Now you can override to bills payable. So Google check bills. So check payment only, but want to include the maturity date. So specify that and say save and close. Now we can validate this. If you want to perform the accounting, you can submit or post to ledger. So we're done with that. Now we'll go and make the payment for this invoice, where system will ask us to select the due date. Sorry, maturity date. Switch to payments. So create payment. Supplier is Google supplier. Disbursement bank account, Google corporate. And payment method, how we are going to process the payment through check. So check only, but it's a bills check. Okay, so where we want to include the maturity date. So select Google check bills, then select payment process profile. Payment document. Now without specifying the maturity date, you cannot process the payment. So you just go to here additional information tab, advanced option tab. Here you have a maturity date. You should specify maturity date for this payment. Say we are issuing the check today, but that will be matured on this month end. Till the time supplier cannot encash it. So this information you have to specify. Now you can select invoice. So this is invoice. So make the payment. So when you print the check, system will be just printing that maturity date only on the check. That's how that can be encashed on the so and so date or after date. So this is how we process as a prepayment bills payable status process will be running. That is as a part of month end activity will be doing. So that system will be switching the account from bills payables to actual account. So that remains same. This is a process how we do. Like these are the setups, and we'll create and we'll include the maturity date as a part of payment process. So sorry. So that's all about bills payable. Yeah. Okay, in tomorrow's session we'll see withholding tax and we'll continue from here. Pay alone, foreign currency invoice and payment, supplier merge, and so on. Okay. Any questions from today's session or any just clarification required on previous sessions or any other queries, please? From anyone, please. Fine. If no questions, we can wind up for today. If you have any issue with instance or with the Google Drive access to access the videos, please send a mail on this, only this mail ID, not required another team mail IDs. Again, they have to pass the same message to me and I have to see and I have to reply. So if you have any issue with instance or Google Drive access, directly send mail on this mail ID so that I'll try to respond as soon as possible. So for any other queries, you can keep in touch with the team. Okay. So any questions?
Lakshman, yeah, I have dropped a mail on the same mail ID for the access of videos on the alternate mail ID, because I'm not able to access my old drive.
Fine, alternative. Okay, fine. I'll do that. I'll check after this session and I'll respond to that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from anyone, please?
Lakshman,
Yeah.
actually, when I am trying to provide access, dataset access for users, sometimes it's selecting default dataset access set. Sometimes it is going to business unit. So in that time, I'm unable to add the roles to the employee user.
You are talking about what data?
Data access set for users.
Okay.
Manage data access set
You are
for
trying to
users.
assign your primary ledger.
The roles, the 5GL roles which it is available. So when I'm trying to add it,
We'll check it now. We'll check it now. 1 second. Okay, we're done with the session. If you want to drop from this meeting, you can just go ahead. And if you have any questions, you can stay back and we can discuss. Yeah, tell what's your username?
AAC user.
Sorry?
AAC. AAC. AAC
One
user.
second one. No, second value or first value?
Second one.
Second one, okay. So for which role you are not able to assign your primary ledger?
I'm assigned, but when you see the security context, where it has mentioned is all, right? Now,
No, you tell me like we have issue with the which role. Okay, any role that means. Okay, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I'm selecting general accountant. Yeah, what you have to select here in the security contest?
data access.
Data access. Yes, I'm selecting. Now here you have to assign your primary ledger. What is the primary ledger name?
AAC.
Select it. Over. What is the issue?
No, there's no. When I'm trying to add this roles, initially the security context over here under the data manage data access for users. Under that we have a security context. All is there, right?
Huh?
So before it was selected security context.
Yes.
Context.
Yes, security contest we have. Within that we have to select the data access set. Yes, we selected same and we assigned our primary ledger to our role through data access set.
Yeah. Lakshman, I'm not talking about this window. Can you cancel this window?
Oh, that okay. Fine. Yeah, tell me.
The above one, header level, you can see that, right? Security context.
Where?
Header level under this manage data access for users.
Oh.
And the below we can see the security context all.
You forget
Is selected all
that
right.
is, see, listen, that is for search purpose. Say for example,
Okay.
users with data access. If I just go with
Yeah.
all, for which users primary ledgers are assigned, business units are assigned, inventory organization assigned, for all the roles it will display. This is for filtration purpose. You want to search for only specific. You want to search for specific user for which roles data access set is assigned. In that case, you can search.
Hmm.
This is for search purpose. Don't consider for other reasons. Just
Yeah.
filtration. You can keep it all, no issues. Or if you want to filter, say you have user, for that user we assign GL, APR, inventory, pricing related roles, but you want to check only BU assigned roles only. In that case, we have to select business unit and give the user check. I'll just show you.
When the system is selected a business unit, at the time I'm unable to add the source.
Why you are selecting here? Why you are selecting those here? You don't need
No,
to play with.
by default system was selected.
Sorry.
By default system was selected.
See, there is
I'm
no,
not aware.
one second. See, there is no point what information is selected here. This is only for search purpose. You are not
Okay.
going with the search, right? Directly just open this window. Don't look at any information, any value selected or something else selected. Okay. Just navigate to this window, click on add. What you want to add to which role, which user, you do it from here. There is nothing you have to focus on. That security contest is selected as business unit or data access. That is for search purpose, not for assignment. Still, if you have any issue, let me know, we can discuss. I am saying very clearly, that is when you are searching for something, that is the point you have to consider. Now you are not here to search, right? You are here to assign your primary ledger to GL related roles, or to assign your business unit to your AP related roles,
Hmm.
right? So you no need to look at, you
Yeah.
need to look at what is selected, because if you are searching for some existing roles, what we have, for which role which BU is assigned, if you want to test it, in that case you have to look at here. That is a point which become valid, but here that is not task we are trying to do from here, right? So we are assigning just what you want to assign, tell me, which you are not able to assign, tell me, we'll discuss. Forget about that.
Later,
Yeah.
later when I changed that business into data access set, then only I was able to add those 5 roles. Otherwise, the system is keep on showing me errors.
I am just telling there is no point. Okay. So I assigned without selecting anything, right? Do you remember?
Yeah.
Then what is the point? Like, you select this value,
Later,
select this value, doesn't matter. You no need to look at this section. This section is just for search. We created many things in the application. Did you just selected something in the search criteria to define? No. To find out
Hmm.
existing, that is required. That part you can ignore.
Okay.
You have to click on this. That's it.
Okay.
It's totally irrelevant, not
Okay.
required.
Okay.
Look at that point. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So any other questions from anyone, please? Fine, no questions. We'll connect tomorrow same time. Have a good day and good night. Thank you all.